Growth and development are much better than just being perfect the whole time. Hey guys, my name is JL, and welcome to the channel. I'm kind of new at this whole YouTube. I wanted to make this short video at first because I have some free time and I thought that it'd be good. Today I want to talk about kind of how I got into medical school, how I got into multiple medical schools. I did get into multiple medical schools. I got into DO and MD schools. And there were some things that I did that I don't think my peers did or did as well as I did that kind of allowed me to get into those schools. The first thing I want to talk about is about diversifying your interests and your activities. So it's really important when you're applying to medical school to not just be like a one-trick pony, but to be a well-rounded person. And there's a couple reasons for that. Different schools have different interests and different kind of emphases. I interviewed at some schools that were heavy on research. Other schools were heavy on rural medicine, things like that. So it's really important to be able to have something to talk about when they ask you questions about those things. So for instance, I was a part of a couple research groups. I was a member of RAM, and as well as an officer in RAM, which stands for Remote Area Medical. But it's really important to kind of have a diversity of activities that you can show. That it counts for people you shadow. So for instance, I shadowed PAs, NPs, and physicians. And so it's really important to be able to kind of talk about why you're choosing to be a physician and not maybe a PA, because that question is pretty common. But if you've never, had any personal experience with, actually getting involved in those areas, you'll have nothing to speak about. So it's really important to diversify your application so that you have something to speak about if they ask you maybe a pointed or tough question. And then the other reason why it's important to diversify your activities for your medical school application is so that you're actually a well-rounded person and not just a pre-med clone. Be an individual. Do things that interest you and that you're passionate about, which kind of leads into the next point, which is participate in your passion. It's all well and good to diversify your activities, but if you're not passionate about them and if you're not able to speak about them, it kind of does you no good. You need to be able to show that you actually care about the things that you're involved in. One of my kind of big volunteer/leadership activities was actually participating in a ASL sign language, which, ASL stands for American Sign Language Club, that my university had. That was something that I was passionate about, that I enjoyed, and so I kind of leaned into that. But also do things, have hobbies. Don't just be a stale, like I said, pre-med clone. And also, don't limit yourself to extracurriculars for your activities, right? Take off-degree classes, right? If you're interested in music, take a music course. If you're interested in philosophy, take maybe a couple philosophy courses. Double major, that's a great way to do that, to show that you're passionate about other things other than medicine, but you're not necessarily interested in those things as a career. And being able to talk about those things, first of all, makes you memorable and also just a better person. The third thing is to take an active look and try to be a leader and have leadership-like qualities. Physicians are leaders in a lot of instances, and medical schools look for people who are kind of already oriented that way. So if you have something that is just blatant leadership experience, include that in your application. Talk about it if you can, as don't force it, but do talk about it. So like, if you're a president of a club, or you start a club, or you start maybe a non-profit organization, or you start any sort of activity, right? That shows that you have initiative. And definitely, even if you think, right, oh, I'm not good at being a leader, try. You never know until you try. And if it goes horribly, or if you find that you don't like it, then try to address that if you're still really passionate about being a physician. The fourth point is really a big one, but it is plan, prepare, and address your weaknesses. Everyone has them. I had a couple in my application. For instance, I applied to several DO schools. I got into a couple DO schools, but I hadn't shadowed a DO physician before I applied. It never worked out. I tried, but things just fell through. But address that, talk about that. They're probably going to ask you those questions, especially if it is a pretty obvious weakness in your application, and have a plan to talk about it. Probably the worst thing you can do in an interview is to have a really tough question about a very obvious weakness in your application and have no answer. Even a kind of weak answer is better than no answer. If you just say, I don't know, that's not good. And it's not insane. The interviewers are people too. They understand if you maybe fell behind in a grade or two. Talk about why. Maybe it was just this class required a different, studying style than I was used to, and I wasn't prepared for that. I had another class maybe later that was similar to that, and I adapted better. The best thing to do is to always say, yes, this may be how I used to be, but I have grown and developed past that. Growth and development are much better than just being perfect the whole time, right? So kind of the funny example that my pre-med advisor gave me was, right, if you used to be a double dipper and you double dipped chips, then if someone asks you about that, you say, yes, I used to be a double dipper, but now I have grown past that and I am no longer a double dipper. See, double dipping is bad. You shouldn't do it. It's very unhygienic. But anyway, the point is, plan for your weaknesses. Be honest with yourself about your weaknesses. Maybe get some outside opinions and have an answer for those, because they will come up. Don't think that you'll just kind of skate by. Sometimes you will, but most of the time you won't. So have a plan for those. The last thing, and I've kind of already talked about this, is just to be yourself. There are thousands and thousands of applicants to medical school every year, but there's only one you. What makes you unique? That should come through in your personal statement. So you should already kind of have a good idea about that when you're in your interview, but really you almost need to establish a connection and a baseline, like, this is who I am. They're not going to get a good idea of all of who you are just from a 30-minute, hour and a half interview, right? But you need to try to make yourself stand out in a memorable way. I was a double major. I majored in biology and Bible, and those two things are kind of often seen as being opposing to one another, but that really made me stand out because I'm passionate about the Bible. And so having that double major really made me unique to a lot of my peers. So it's really important to kind of just pick up on those things. Maybe you are really passionate about an instrument, or you love teaching and you've maybe became a tutor at one point or something like that. Find something that makes you unique. A couple of things are always good, and seek to kind of remind your interviewers about those things, because at the end of the day, they've seen dozens of students, and being memorable for good reasons will put you ahead. And like I've said, there are thousands and thousands of applicants every year. There's only one you, though. So be yourself. Don't try to be a pre-med clone, because everyone is trying to be a pre-med clone. Be yourself. The last thing, this isn't really a point, but the last thing I kind of just want to talk about is just a word of encouragement. It's not as difficult as it's made out to be. It is difficult and it is challenging, and you need to be ready for it. But once it's done, all of the stress and anxiety that has surrounded yourself, that has consumed your life for the past year, is over. And you can finally relax a little bit and breathe. And so there is an end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Prepare, plan, do the work. But at the end of the day, whatever will happen, and it will be okay. So good luck to you all. I'm going to say all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe if you want. But I hope you have a great day. Peace out.